extraordinary revelations in The Guardian last night that Peter Mandelson failed his security vetting. What was your reaction to that?
In a sense, no surprises, right? And I think anybody who has been following the news over the past few months would have been surprised if Peter Mandelson had passed his vetting. I think what's really shocking, though, is that no politician is taking responsibility for this. And so far in this scandal, we've seen the Prime Minister's Chief of Staff go, we've seen the Ambassador to Washington go, we've seen the Director of Comms go, we've seen the Cabinet Secretary go, and now we've seen the Senior Mandarin in the Foreign Office go. But it was the Prime Minister's responsibility. The Prime Minister decided to appoint Peter Mandelson. The Prime Minister accepted that the process was going to be sped up. It's the Prime Minister's fault, and he's the man who won't take responsibility.
And as an MP sitting in Parliament, do you feel misled by what the Prime Minister has said to you?
There's no doubt that the Prime Minister misled Parliament. The Prime Minister told Kemi Badenoch in September, and I think again in February, that full due process was followed. Now that's clearly not true. Peter Mandelson didn't pass his vetting for the most senior diplomatic role. And now, it might, some people say the Prime Minister didn't know. Well, we now know that the Prime Minister was at least told on Tuesday night. And it was only when The Guardian broke the story on Thursday afternoon that Number 10 admitted anything about it. The Prime Minister has a very solemn duty in the House of Commons to correct the record as soon as possible on something as serious like this. And he didn't do it. He didn't even admit that it had happened until journalists dragged it out of him. That's completely unacceptable. I have to say it's very hard to have confidence in him past this point.
And Number 10 says that he wasn't told, which is why they sacked Ollie Robbins. If that's true, should he be held to account for something that he didn't know about?
Well, as I say, even if that's true, and I find it very unlikely, it will be very interesting to see what Mr. Robbins and Mr. Robbins' friends say over the weekend. I'm sure they have their own side of the story. But let's assume that the Prime Minister didn't know. We do know that he was told on Tuesday night. And even then, he didn't admit it on Wednesday in the House or on Thursday in the House. That is a huge dereliction of duty. In our system, that amounts to knowingly misleading the House. He has broken the rules of our House.
So 100% in your opinion, Starmer must resign now?
I don't see how his position is tenable. To be honest, I haven't seen how his position is tenable for several months. But it is in the nature of this man to cling on desperately.
And David Lammy was the Foreign Secretary at the time that decision was made. Do you think he has to go as well?
So there is a letter that was written after David Lammy had handed over to Yvette Cooper, which strongly suggests that ministers were told about this. And I would hope and expect that Foreign Affairs Select Committee will have Mr. Lammy in front of them as soon as possible. But I say, this goes all over the place. It's not just the Prime Minister, it's David Lammy, it's Yvette Cooper, it's anyone who was involved in the vetting and clearance process. And as I say, no politician is taking responsibility at the moment. It's time they did.
And as you say, that this goes into a lot of areas, but if it is true what Number 10 is saying, that the Prime Minister wasn't told that Mandelson had failed the vetting, what do you think that says about the process of government that we've seen sort of unfolding?
So I suspect that in that case, what happened was that Mandelson had already gone to Washington, and it was decided that it would be better not to say anything rather than withdraw him from Washington. I find it very hard to believe that nobody would have mentioned it to the Foreign Secretary. I find it very hard to believe that no one would have mentioned it to senior people in Number 10. And I'm pretty sure that over the course of the next few days, further evidence will emerge.
And what would you say to critics of your party that has seen scandals about accountability in recent years, very, very high-profile scandals? If they were to come back at you and say, well, your party's in no position to be lecturing others on their standards in public office, what would you respond to that?
The Labour Party is in power now. Keir Starmer is Prime Minister now. It's his responsibility. And to be honest, yes, we did have our problems, and the Labour Party and Keir Starmer lived through those, and they saw them. They knew exactly what was expected of them when they went into power, and they have failed.